Okay. Does this work? Okay, sweet. Um. Okay, so today I am recording stream thing. I don't know. I'm not professional at all. If anyone is here, feel free to tell me. That would be nice. This story is called Don't Eat Today's Special by Oops. Did I click the right one? Yeah. It's not that long of a story. I have some other stories to come out soon. It's just gonna be some. Alright. It's gonna be one story for today. I might just do a couple each time. Alright. Don't eat today's special. There's something terrifying going on in the restaurant downtown. I could give you the address. Could tell you the exact location. Could give you turn by turn directions on how to get there, but I won't. I'll describe how it looks so you can turn away if you stumble on it by accident. But that's all I do. I'd rather not have any of you trying to find the place. The restaurant I'm talking about is a rundown part of my hometown. It's all kind of a neighborhood that consists mainly of closed up shops, their dusty windows blocked in with old newspapers and cardboard. There are only two kinds of businesses that seem to survive in that place. There are filthy bars lined with slot machines on one hand, and the other the sort of a second-hand electronics stores that seem only to exist so pickpockets can get rid of stolen cell phones. I used to take a shortcut through this district on my way home from my part-time job. Normally there was little to see, or rather what was to see was either gross or concerning, if not both. So you're better off not paying attention in the first place. This on this particular day several months ago, however, an illuminated window caught my eye. A simple tablecloth behind a dirty window. It was the bright white color that did the trick. Nothing really special, you may think, and you'd be right. But its pristine condition stood out in a place like this, where an all encompassing patina of filth and expected was an expected part of any decor. The window belonged to a two-story house that wedged in between some taller buildings. Graffiti covered its walls to an extent that rendering it barely recognizable as a restaurant. Once its name must have been painted onto the wall above the window. Now only a few faded letters remain legible. Da at straw was all I could make out. I guess that second word used to be Bristow, but no idea about the first one. Upon taking a closer look, though, the illuminated window I spotted laid a laid table housing a single lone customer. There were other tables and chairs haphazardly littered around the room, but the central one was the only table sprouting bright and white, with a cloth and a guest. Various pots and pans were strewn about its surface. There above was filled with a soft, foggy steam of freshly cooked food. There was a lot of it, far too much to be for the lone patron. He was a skinny man with worn clothes that seemed too big for him. His cheeks looked hollow and his arms spindly. Maybe a part of the local population of homeless drifters and addicts. Definitely not the kind of person who might be able to afford a meal of this size. He was facing my direction without ever looking directly at me or the window in general. His attention was completely focused on the food. He shoveled a spoon filled with mashed potatoes and green beans into his mouth before grasping the nearby glass of water to flood the generous portion down his throat. There was an obvious appetite in the way that he hungrily wolfed down anything he could get on his hands on, and the longer I stared at the simple but generous meal, the more I started to grow hungry myself. For a minute or two, I fruitlessly walked back and forth in front of the place, searching for a way to enter. The only visible door was closed, and it didn't look like an entrance in the first place. It was a plain sealed door with an electric warning sign. After returning to the window one last time, I gave up. Went home and proceeded to forget about the whole encounter. I didn't think about it all until I passed by the window again, the week after. As soon as I caught a glimpse of the white color, the memory came flooding back. The very same man was still there. More likely was there again once he sat there in front of the lavish meal. A sweaty gleam covering his face, and I could see the muscles of his neck tense and twitch whenever he swallowed. The only thing that had really changed was from the week before was the food. Jeez, I need to get some water. Jeez, what's wrong with me? Jeez, what's wrong with me? Jeez, what's wrong with me? Okay, so that won't happen again. I hope. Alright. Should I get back to reading? No, it's not like anyone's here. And it's also not like anyone will drop in to ever even be able to listen to any of my videos. I'm even going to delete this part. Audacity. Yeah. The simple mix of potatoes, soups, and steamed vegetables had been replaced by more intricate and expensive meals. Plates housed nicely and arranged cutlets of various meats, each artificially drenched in a different sauce and adorned by a few herbs. With a twist of his wrist, the patron scooped up the serving of the delicate noodles and dripping olive oil and roasted garlic. He squeezed the forks against his lips, his jaw still trying to chew the previous load. Then he opened his mouth, shoved the noodles in, nearly choking in the process. He looked slightly distressed as he tried to swallow the portion, while his hands were already scooping up the next load. A tender piece of chicken breast from its roast dripped in brown marinade. He slightly shuddered and forced the food down, and took a second sip of the glass of red wine. Then he went back to stuffing himself. I watched him for 5 minutes before moving on. The scent drifting through the windows was enchanting, but I already had given up on the notion of finding an entrance to the building. When I came home, I emptied the pantry and cooked myself a giant meal as well. The next time I came back to the restaurant wasn't by chance. Something about the whole place had piqued my interest, and I was looking forward to seeing whether the same singular customer had returned for a third time. To my disappointment, something was blocking the view that particular night. A board of some sort, propped against the window from the inside. I could still see parts of the room through a small gap. I could see that the light was still burning, and that somebody appeared to be still sitting at the place where the man had been those last 2 weeks. But there's no way of getting a good look at what was going on. With my curiosity, I left unsatisfied and I went home. The next day, I made a detour run. I just hated to be left hanging like that. The window was blocked again. Over the next few weeks, I developed a habit of dropping by the place every now and then. Sometimes the window was blocked. Sometimes I got a good view in the room. Whenever I did, I'd find the same sight: the skinny man sitting in front of the increasingly luscious meals, gorging himself on the food. By now, you can't really call him skinny anymore, though. He gained at least a little weight. His cheeks were no longer sunken in, and his formerly loosely hanging vest had grown a bit tighter around the waist. While he had eaten with a healthy appetite at first, his expression had turned into a slightly pained by now. Every bite became a struggle. Every motion was forced. His nose wrinkled in disgust every time his lips opened. Still, he kept eating. There's something wrong with me. What the heck? Why have little background noise when you can have as much background noise as possible? Okay, what the hell is that buzzing sound? Alright, I'm gonna check something real quick on the stream. One viewer, okay. I just realized I'm probably gonna be leaking the direct messages. Okay. Go back to Audacity. This stuff is hard, man. Sorry. I'll just leave the area. I have to admit, however, I didn't pay that much attention to him. The increasingly exotic food was just too bizarre to look away from. Every time I allowed a glimpse at the table, I'd see more and more alien items appearing in more strange arrangements. Jelly cubes encasing sharp-fanged anglefish. Misshapen eggs the size of my fist, emitting a faint glow. Noodles so thin and dark they looked like hair. It became so hard to even recognize half of the stuff was edible in the first place. I watched the man crack open the gigantic body of a purple spider crab, watched him bite down on the moss-covered mushrooms that spat clouds of yellow spores with every touch. Witnessed him sitting in front of a plate while squirming black bugs that tried to flee him from his spoon shoveled them into his maw. Giant algae plants shaped and twisted around each other like strands of DNA. Needle-covered orange balls that shivered as if breathing. The roasted body of some 8-legged animal, either remnants of some freak nature or several animals stitched together to create a new abnormal shape. Soon, I ignored the patron completely and dropped to see what kind of absurd ideas the cook had come up with this time. And strangely, no matter how bizarre and abhorrent the food looked, it left me wanting to try it myself. Left me hungry and searching for something to fill myself with as well. And then when I finally returned home to plunder my kitchen, I'd end up unsatisfied. As time passed, changes with a glimpse of the goings inside the restaurant grew rather rarer. More and more often, the window was blocked, and I relegated to squeezing my head against the corner in hopes I could at least catch a glance of that day's special minced meat shaped to resemble realistic human heads. with hairs and teeth taken away from various animals, a thin glass that emitted a seemingly endless stream of a bluish fog, red soup that followed the, the motions of the spoon before it ever came in contact, as if driven by some magnetic force. By now, I can't believe that I never noticed anything being wrong with these things when witnessing them. But back then, I kept telling myself that there existed a perfectly reasonable explanation for all of this. That everything I saw were just tricks manufactured by some creative and probably slightly deranged cooking genius. But this little lie I kept telling myself could only get me so far. It was only a matter of time until the strangeness crossed the threshold. That's what happened last week. Things got a little too weird to ignore them mentally push aside. There was something wrong with that place. There is something terrifying about that restaurant downtown. Before the day in question, I hadn't gotten a clear view into the restaurant for a month. Just little hints here and there, but never enough to leave me satisfied. And on that day, finally, the window was free again. The moment I stepped closer to this joyful excitement, I felt turned into a subtle horror. There was only a single item lying on the table. It looked like the carcass of a large stag at first glance. A four-legged animal with short reddish-brown fur and huge dark antlers. At second glance, the alertons that had been done to the creature were unmistakable. I say alertations because I refuse to believe such a thing could. It looked like the carcass of a large stag at first glance. A four-legged animal with short reddish-brown hair and huge dark antlers. At second glance, the alternations had been done to the creature were unmistakable. I say altercations because I refuse to believe that a thing like this could come out of any normal process. I must have been crafted artificially. Maybe taxidermied out of different animals, so then the creator of this monstrosity did a perfect job blending the various parts into the seamless whole. Now I'm going to kind of go edit this audio because I messed up a little bit. I can't hear it. Can you guys hear it? Can hear it? I'm not sure. One sec.